Social. Oh my gosh, ladies. Did you love the Golden Globes last night or what? Just kidding, because guess what? They were last night, but there was no red carpet, no broadcast, and the winners were announced. Oh, where? On a blog? What? Yeah, NBC dropped the show this year after the organization behind the Globes, which is the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. You'll recall they were heavily criticized for ethical lapses and for a shocking lack of diversity. But it got us asking the question about, award shows in general and what this means for Hollywood and award shows going forward. Is this the beginning of the end?
Well, I wonder if it's the beginning of the end for just this award show. The Globes have always kind of confused me. It's like this group of some 90 journalists, and to get in, you have to have written a couple stories. Some of them haven't written anything in a decade, but they seem at least to have held so much power. Yet at the same time, they're often ridiculed by the very people they are awarding, most severely by generally the MC at the actual award ceremony. Yet they hold so much, or they did rather hold so much cultural cachet. So to see them getting sort of dragged on Twitter last night was kind of like seeing how the mighty, and some might even say the corrupt, have fallen. It was like their hubris was almost getting punished. So I was kind of there for it. But I have to say, I'm still a sucker for the Oscars.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it made me think right away about the Oscars, because I think that what the pandemic may show is what's truly an essential awards show versus just fluff and frivolity, and you're not woke enough and you're not with it, so we're just going to let you go. The pandemic may be a really great excuse to dump the trash, and just the creme de la creme rises to the top. So I think, speaking of the Oscars, Jess, it's going to put even more pressure. Right now, they're scheduled to go on March 27th. So I think there's going to be extra pressure. Hopefully we're out of this mess by then. But I think they need to put on not just an okay show now. We know how to do remote, online, pandemic-type shows. So they got to deliver, I think.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't this the show that everyone felt of the big awards shows was the most fun to watch? Usually probably for the reasons that Jess pointed out. You always had kind of a lot of times a silly host.
Everyone was drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Some, inappropriate behavior, perhaps you tuned in for that. But I guess my thought went immediately to the content creators, right? The actors and the producers and the writers who this was probably a big night for them always. But I guess, a lot of the content creators like Tom Cruise, who gave back 2 of his Golden Globes, have kind of what they're saying is Hollywood Foreign Press, go sit in the corner and think of about what you've done. Is that it, Lainey?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. And I think that they tried to get people there this year. There were invitations sent out to publicists and agents, and everybody was like, no thanks, we're just gonna, so they were rejected multiple times.
But is this kind of a situation where maybe don't bite the hand that feeds you? Because Hollywood without awards shows is I don't know, peanut butter without jam? I don't know, that's a bad analogy. But can we really go, can we imagine? The small thing that we enjoyed, I think, about this was a celebration of movies that we love, but also it's the glitz and the glam and the kind of living vicariously through them. So do you think these are going to disappear?
Cynthia, that's the 2 hours before the awards. That's actually not the actual awards. So what people enjoy, the glitz and the glam is the red carpet. That's, the pre-show. So
are we just going to have a red carpet?
And then the after party.
Just a red carpet. For the party. Everybody's down for the party and the looking good and the flash bulbs and the interviews. But to Lainey's point, is the actual show what we want anymore? And can I say, we are probably at the worst point yet in the last 2 years of this pandemic. And if anything, who wants to watch a bunch of actors maybe patting themselves on the back at a very, perhaps unnecessarily over-the-top show? It's just, read the room. It's not the time for this, but if you have gravitas and seriousness like the Oscars, maybe we have time for that to respect and recognize the art. If I can pull out a little bit more from that, I also think the tone would be wrong to be having these events, whether it's going to be in LA or New York. Everywhere is surging in cases. And so I don't even know how you put on a show. And even if you say today, we've followed all the safety protocols, Like, that's hilarious today, because
I mean, they're an industry
virus
that's
is
about
everywhere. I don't think
creativity,
you-
though. Okay, forget it for a second. This because the reason why they're not doing this is not because of COVID, which you raise interesting points, but they're an industry that is about creativity. You'd think that they could come up with, if we wanted to have them, if they've learned their lesson, if they've done better, they are in the business of creating entertaining content, right?
I don't think it's actually, you know, I think that it's one thing to have an interesting, entertaining show, but I think it's about what they're trying to celebrate. Like, there was a downhill slide for the Oscars before COVID. Viewership was dwindling. And one of the reasons why is because people out there who would tune in didn't know what any of these movies are. And the Oscars kept ignoring the big movies that everybody cared about. So we all know about the whole Lord of the Rings thing, and that was like one of the most highly rated Oscars of recent time because everybody had gone to see those movies. Nowadays, even though we, like in the business, might like certain movies or have had seen certain movies because it's like a professional obligation, you know, a lot of the people out there haven't seen the movies that inevitably get nominated. Probably the movie that will get the most nominations, one of, is going to be The Power of the Dog. That movie is going to attract this many viewers compared to the most popular box office movie of 2021, which was Spider-Man: Far From Home. No Way Home, sorry. There's a lot of homes in these Spider-Mans.
or maybe it expedites the push of the streaming movie, right? Like, that's the last holdout for the Oscars. You have to be playing in a traditional theater for X amount of time before we will consider you as an Oscar contender. Like Pandemic, everybody's been watching movies at home, and we know that that creep has been slow but certain for streaming films to come in and cross over into Oscar world.
Exactly,
so maybe
which is why I have seen Power of the Dog, but not the Spider-Man movie, because I don't think the Spider-Man movie is available to stream. So I wonder if there would, but Lainey, those numbers shocked me. I didn't know that.
No, Spider-Man: No Way Home set a box office record in these pandemic times. Like, it was a
So
huge
people
number,
going to the
pandemic
theater
or not.
to see it, 'cause you can't stream it.
People rushed to the theater, Jess. Like, packed the theater. I mean, that may be what Mel is referring. Why one of the reasons why, you know, this situation is so bad. They went to the theaters to see that movie. The movie made so much money.